All right, welcome to Dis Explainer. Today, we are stepping into a world where literally billions of dollars, fundamental constitutional rights, and the very direction of a nation can hinge on the exact phrasing of a single sentence. We're looking at the thrilling, incredibly high-stakes universe of India's top lawyers. Okay, let's dive right into this. So, our guide for this explainer is the really fascinating book Legal Eagles Stories of the Top 7 Indian Lawyers by Indu Pan. We're going to use the insights from this text to kind of demystify the journeys of these formidable legal minds, zeroing in today on a couple of key titans who don't just practice the law, they actively shape it. And there's a huge reason their role is so absolutely critical. As former Chief Justice of India, R.M. Lodha points out here, the entire justice system relies heavily on the quality of its lawyers. When matters of just incredible national impact reach the Supreme Court, it's the analytical skills and the deep constitutional knowledge of these advocates that actually enable the judges to make the right call. They aren't just defending clients, they are literally helping to build the country's constitutional jurisprudence from the ground up. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start inside the Supreme Court, trace the rise of Harish Salve, and explore how he shapes the nation. Then we'll break down the massive Vodafone tax battle, look at the Attorney General's role, and finally extract the secrets of the Eagles. Section 1. Inside the Supreme Court, the arena of titans. The Supreme Court of India is, well, it's a completely unforgiving environment. It's an arena that requires lawyers to have an absolute encyclopedic knowledge of the law paired with unyielding grit. The pressure here is honestly crushing. You're arguing in front of the brightest legal minds in the entire country, and the outcomes? They dictate everything from individual liberties to massive corporate survival. So let's meet a man who has completely mastered this arena. Section 2. The Rise of Harish Salve, the Invincible. Today, Salve is an absolute legend, but his beginnings were actually full of super relatable setbacks. Now, looking at these career milestones, you'd probably think it was a straight, easy climb to the top, right? He started out by carrying files for his father in a tax case for the Bollywood legend Dilip Kumar back in 1975. Fast forward to 1999, and he's the Solicitor General of India. But here is the really interesting part that the timeline doesn't explicitly show. Salve actually wanted to be an engineer first, and then, get this, he failed his chartered accountancy exams twice. He vividly remembers the total culture shock of his first days as an article clerk. It was only after being deeply inspired by the legendary Nani Palkhivala that he pivoted to the law. It's just a brilliant reminder for all of us that early failures are absolutely not fatal. Now, what's truly striking here is the sheer vulnerability of this memory. Salve is recalling the 1981 bearer bonds case. As what he called a raw junior, he had to argue before a heavy-hitting 5-judge Constitution bench. For the first few minutes, he literally lost his voice out of pure nervousness. Just froze up. But he pushed through that intense fear, argued brilliantly, and even earned a dissenting judgment in his favor from one of the justices. That specific moment really established him. He took that classic David and Goliath nervousness and transformed it into absolute courtroom dominance. Section 3. Shaping the Nation, the Amicus Curiae. So, Salve isn't just known for defending corporate billionaires. His most impactful work is actually often done as an amica curiae, which means friend of the court. We can really see how he navigates incredibly charged, intense situations. Take the Delhi CNG case. He faced immense personal attacks for forcing the switch to clean fuel, but ultimately history completely vindicated him. In the politically explosive Kaveri water dispute, he literally convinced the Karnataka chief minister to open the water gates and respect federalism over local politics. And in the Gujarat riots cases, despite severe public criticism and intense accusations from other lawyers, the Supreme Court maintained full faith in his absolute impartiality to assist the court. He just focuses strictly on constitutional norms, completely blocking out the outside noise. Section 4. The Vodafone tax battle, a billion-dollar showdown. Just let that number sink in for a second. $11.2 billion. Back in 2007, British telecom giant Vodafone bought a 67% stake in Hutchison Essar. At the time, it was the biggest ever acquisition in India. But the deal was structured through these incredibly complex layers of overseas subsidiaries over in the Cayman Islands. While the Indian tax department saw this and issued a staggering $2.5 billion tax demand. The stakes for foreign investor sentiment in India literally could not have been higher.
The core arguments here were starkly different. On one side, the tax department argued that because the underlying assets were physically located in India, capital gains tax was owed. Conversely, Harish Salve, representing Vodafone, meticulously argued that the transaction took place strictly between two overseas firms, meaning the Indian tax authorities simply did not have territorial jurisdiction over it. To prove this point, Salve stood in the Supreme Court and argued this highly complex, multi-layered stance for 17 consecutive days. 17 days. And, well, he won. In January 2012, the Supreme Court ruled in Vodafone's favor, declaring they were not liable to withhold Indian taxes. It was a massive, landmark victory for Harish Salve and for foreign investors. But, and this is a highly crucial detail, the Supreme Court had noted the government could amend the law. So what happened? The government later amended the tax law retroactively, essentially reviving their tax demand from the past. It was a pretty stark reminder of the complex, ongoing dance between corporate law and state power.
Section 5. The Attorney General, Mukul Rohatgi.
Now, the crucial point to take away here is just how heavily appointments at this level are scrutinized. In 2014, the incredibly renowned lawyer Ram Jethmalani actually wrote to the Prime Minister strongly opposing Rohatgi's appointment, claiming Rohatgi had a weak stance on recovering black money. So how did Rohatgi respond to that kind of pressure? With incredible patience. He firmly maintained he never opposed the move to bring back black money, and he deliberately didn't fight back in the press. He simply viewed taking the Attorney General post not as some shiny prize he was hankering for, but as a deep moral obligation to give back to the very profession that built him.
Section 6. Secrets of the Eagles, Philosophies on Success. We've talked a lot about billion-dollar cases and intense constitutional showdowns, but how do you actually build a mind capable of sustaining this level of practice? Well, it comes down to the strict rules these eagles live by. First, as Salve showed by failing his CA exams, you absolutely must harness the energy of failure to achieve greater heights. Second, prepare rigorously. That effortless spontaneity you see in the courtroom, it's actually the result of intense, exhaustive preparation behind the scenes. Third, and Salve is very strict about this one, physical fitness. He deeply believes a sharp mind requires a healthy body, so he commits at least an hour a day to it. His rule is, if you can't find time for your body, cut down your work. And finally, absolute clarity, which leads us perfectly to our next big point.
This quote right here is a golden piece of advice from Salve's mentor, the legendary Nani Palkhivala. For something to be convincing, it must, in the first place, be simple. It sounds so easy, right? But simplifying highly complex, multi-layered corporate structures into a compelling, digestible narrative for a judge is the true mark of a genius. It requires an encyclopedic knowledge of the subject to be able to confidently strip away all the legal jargon and just find the core truth. And that brings us to the end of our explainer, leaving us with this really provocative question to think about. Harish Salve frequently argues that micromanaging administration or retroactively changing laws due to a trust deficit actually creates a self-defeating war against business. So in an emerging economy, where exactly is the line between properly regulating business and stifling the growth that the country desperately needs? It's a very delicate balance, and as we've seen today, it's a line that is fiercely debated, negotiated, and drawn every single day by the legal eagles inside the Supreme Court. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope it sparked your curiosity to go out and learn more.